Let me say one more quick thing on contracts. I'm going to use another example. Had a client, long-term client of mine, had a truck service. They're those guys that went out when the long-haul trucks would break down on the interstate, you know, the outer belt and all that, and they had a truck service right off the 275 in the Cincinnati area. And those employees tend to be hard-drinking, paycheck-to-paycheck guys, and they tend to have police records. But they're good mechanics. That's what they do, and that's why he hires them. Had his business for years. They probably paid 20 grand in insurance, and of that premium, probably 12 of it was for the drivers because he had 3 drivers with DUIs or OMVIs or whatever the case may be. It's just the nature of the beast. Play golf with this guy. He calls me up. He said, I got a quote this year. And he quotes it every year. I don't care. I let him go out and shop it. And he said, it's about 12 grand. And we're at 20 in a good company, good solid background, the whole thing. He said, I'll send you the quote over so you can see if you can match it. I said, don't send the quote over. He said, what do you mean? He said, send the application over. The application? I said, yeah, the application becomes part of the contract. I want to see what this guy's disclosing to the insurance company. So he sends the application over, and there are 3 drivers missing from the driver's list. How odd is that? There are 3 guys with DUIs, no OMVIs. Well, I wonder why it was only 12 grand. Didn't take a rocket scientist to figure out why it was 12 grand because he wasn't disclosing those 3 drivers. I said, did you sign it? He said, yeah, I signed it. I said, read to me the fraud statement, the Ohio fraud statement. Well, if you sign that thing, and you know there was a falsehood on there, it's a felony. Well, he dropped another F word, and I won't state it here. After that, the felony and the fraud, he dropped another. I said, exactly. I said, the point is, nothing may ever happen, and one of those guys may never get in an accident. But if one of them rear ends somebody while he's on a service call, and the insurance, and he kills them, and the insurance company pulls the contract and they're not disclosed on there, do you think they're going to cover it? Probably not. I wouldn't want to be covered. So needless to say, he's still a client, and you know, that guy kind of went away real quick when my client kind of took him to task on that. So what I'm driving at here is, if you've got an insurance contract, you've got an application in front of you, make sure it's filled out and read it before you sign it, because it could affect coverage down the line. Remember, it's not the agent that's going to settle those claims, it's the insurance company. Beating up my industry. It's the truth, you gotta watch out. Anybody here require renter's insurance in your leases? Require your tenants to carry renter's insurance? This person, that's one of Dan's. Isn't that one of your places?
Yeah, right.
Nobody here requires renter's insurance for your tenants to carry renter's insurance in your leases?
One house, where they do.
Well, everybody knows that if, God forbid, you have a fire in that house, their stuff isn't covered by your policy. That's their stuff. You need tenants or renter's insurance. Usually, like 50 to 75% of people raise their hand that they require, and then I say who in here enforces it, and everybody's hands go down. Nobody enforces it. Yeah. Well, since nobody does it anyway, I'm going to give you a good reason why you should. Not just the good karma, if you want to put it that way, but there's some protective nature to them carrying the renter's insurance. Again, don't know the source, but 60% of property claims are caused by negligent tenants. You know, pot of water boiling on the stove, you know, candle burning, that kind of stuff. If they cause the claim, they're liable for that damage. If you're lucky to get the rent check out of them every month, how much money do you think you're going to get out for causing that damage? Probably not very much. But if they've got renter's insurance, they've got liability coverage usually on that renter's insurance. I remember coming out of college when waterbeds were still cool. First apartment, they said, you got to have waterbed insurance. Well, what they were saying is you had to have liability insurance on a renter's policy in case the thing broke and did damage. Well, the point is, now if they've got that third party, they've got another pocket in there. So if they leave the pot of water boiling on the stove, or they leave the candle burning, now you've got a third party to go to. We've even had a couple situations where the tenant was responsible. It was gross negligence. They knew they just messed up, fell asleep, they admitted it, where their renter's insurance stepped in and picked up the damage before their property insurance policy of the owner had to even step in. So if you require it, or you don't require it, I think you should. And if you do require it, you should be enforcing it because that's giving you some protection whether you do it or not.
What's the average price for rental insurance?
There are a couple carriers out there that will do them without credit scoring. You know, the big players out there, the State Farms of the world and all that, they're usually credit score renter's insurance. So that depends. I mean, a lot of the tenants that we may have may not even qualify for it credit-wise. But there are some carriers out there, if you go to our website, non-credit scored policies, roughly $12, $15 a month. They'll give them, you know, minimal liability, 50 grand. Some property coverage for their stuff. There's some for multiple units, or if you've got apartment buildings, there are programs out there where you actually, insure that risk for every tenant in there, and you pass it back on to the tenant. Different, yeah, it's easy. That's right. And you get into that, where you get into multiple units, apartment buildings, and all that. It even gives you some, I don't know, call what it is, some negotiating tools when you're dealing with your property insurance company on, giving a better rate out. If you're offsetting 60% of those property claims by having this coverage where it steps in first, pretty big deal. Pretty big deal. Not a big deal if you got 4 single-family rentals, but if you got, 48, 100, however many property or units in an apartment building, it's worth looking into that type of stuff. I'm surprised nobody requires rental insurance. That's the first thing. All right, last myth is cheaper is better. I've talked about quite a few things that you can offset that old bad commercial policy, or trying to save money but doing it in a way instead of knocking your coverage down. Put your properties together if you can on a master or blanket type policy. That typically drives lower rates. Raise deductibles, get rid of coverages you don't need, those types of things. So just because it's cheap doesn't mean it's better. And my attitude is build a plan around it and then hope you never use it. I mean, that's insurance. It's like a prepaid funeral home plot. You pay for it, you never want to use it.
It's like parachutes.
Yeah, you pay for that. You want to use that.
No,
You
you don't want to.
don't want to, well, it depends. If you're actually jumping out of the plane with one on, you want to use it. You're talking about if you're soaring with one, if you want to go out here. Never jump out of a perfectly good airplane. Folks, anybody have any questions?
How about fire, as far as high fire areas? We're in Santa Barbara, we got a lot of high fire issues. Can you speak about that a little bit, maybe?
What we'll get is the carriers that we use will typically send out moratoriums when one is burning. Let's say you can't buy any additional or new coverages at this period of time, but other than that, the rates factor in that you may live in a brush fire. It's like people in Florida.
Right.
They offer wind. You're going to pay for wind insurance down there. They may pay a little bit more here for fire insurance just because of that exposure, but typically it's not a big deal getting the coverage. It's just how they price it. And then again, when one's burning, whether they're offered coverage. So, if there's one burning out there, don't go put an offer on one.
Right.
No, I'm just kidding.
Well, actually, my friend's house burned in one of the last fires, and her broker did something incorrect and basically went out of business. And the insurer was Lloyd's of London, so now they're having to sue Lloyd's of London to get the coverage that they need. And how does that happen?
What do you mean, how's that?
Well, how did it end up that they're saying they didn't have coverage because the broker went out of business?
The broker going out of business is usually, it's probably more rare than the broker just missed something. That's why I carry errors and omissions insurance. I don't know who here's a realtor or even a broker, but I mean, that's why you carry insurance. We all make mistakes.
Is there a way to check for that and make sure that
You can ask the agent to see a copy of their policy, just the same way you would for a contractor coming out to your house and have one of your properties on there. I think I've been asked for it twice in 17 years.
the last thing I think about?
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing is Lloyd's of London, everybody's kind of heard of them. They're big and intergalactic conglomerate, if you want to put it that way. But they're probably, I think in the U.S., about 2,500 property and casualty companies doing business. You can probably only name 10 of them if you're lucky. So just because they're a company out of Europe doesn't mean they're a good company. Doesn't mean they're not a good company. There's a service called AM Best. It's a rating service. You can check out financial strength insurance companies and all that. I don't know how unbiased they are. I don't know if they are or not. Maybe they are a third party.
What's that called? AM Best?
AM Best, yeah. Alpha Mike Best.
Are there any agencies you'd recommend if you've got insurance problems and your insurance company isn't working with you or helping you?
I mean, you can always call us. I mean, we work, obviously I wouldn't come out all the way out to California if we didn't do business out here. I mean, even if you're not a client, if you got a question, if you're not going to monopolize me for 30 minutes and not be a client, then no problem. If you got a question, I'm happy to answer, but I'm honestly a lot better with email than I am with phones. And that's, I did mention, that's a good point. Whenever you're dealing with the insurance company or agency, the days when you could call Bob, the agent down the street, and Bob said, yeah, no problem, I got it covered. Well, Bob wrote it down on a piece of paper that ended up in the garbage can and forgot about it. Email is a great thing because it creates that electronic paper trail. Hey, Bob, did you get this out and all? Here's your endorsement or whatever the case may be. So yeah, that's why we can do what we do nationally, because we're dealing so much with technology and internet and emails. all that. We're dropping policies on file transfer protocols. So we don't even send policies